Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about something pretty wild. Could you survive in Lord Nelson's Royal Navy? I mean, this was the most technologically advanced and supremely efficient fighting force of its time, but life on those wooden warships, brutal doesn't even begin to cover it. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. Super curious where you're all listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. All right, find that cozy spot, take a nice slow breath, and just let your body sink into whatever you're lying on. We're heading back to the early 1800s, and trust me, you're going to be real grateful for that mattress by the time we're done. So, congratulations, you just woke up in Britain, 1805. Your eyes flutter open to darkness, not the comfortable darkness of your bedroom with subtle light leaking in around the curtains, but a damp, oppressive darkness that smells like unwashed bodies, tar, and something sour you can't quite place. Your back aches from the canvas hammock strung tightly across a space barely wider than your shoulders. The rough wool blanket scratches against your skin, and your thin mattress, stuffed with what feels like lumpy straw, does little to cushion your body from the hard canvas beneath. Around you, dozens of men snore and grunt in their sleep, packed in like sardines, each hammock hanging just 14 inches from the next. You're on the lower gun deck of a Royal Navy warship, and it's sometime before dawn. The air is thick and stale, no windows, no fresh breeze, just the fetid exhalations of 100 sleeping men. The gentle rocking of the ship makes your hammock sway slightly. It would almost be comforting if your head wasn't pounding from the rum ration you consumed last night. Suddenly, a piercing whistle cuts through the darkness, followed by gruff shouts. "All hands! Up or down! Rise and shine, you lazy bastards!" The boatswain's mates are moving through the deck, shaking hammocks and occasionally cutting one down if its occupant is too slow to respond. The sailor crashes to the hard wooden deck with a thud and a curse. You don't want to be next. Good news, you're about to become part of the most powerful navy the world has ever seen. Bad news, there's a decent chance you didn't volunteer for this. See, the Royal Navy in Lord Nelson's time had a serious manpower problem. In peacetime, they had around 14,000 sailors, but by the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805, after years of war with France, they needed 110,000 men to crew their massive fleet. That's a hell of a recruiting gap to fill. Some men voluntarily joined up, sure. Young lads from coastal towns dreaming of adventure, or men escaping poverty with the promise of regular meals and pay. But a whole lot of others, they were taken by force. The press gang, just the name of it, probably sent shivers down the spines of men in seaside towns across Britain. Imagine you're having a drink in a tavern after a long day's work as a merchant sailor. The door bursts open and in storms a gang of tough-looking men led by a naval officer. Before you can even finish your ale, you're clubbed over the head, dragged through the streets and tossed in a boat heading for a warship anchored in the harbour. Congratulations, you've just been pressed into service for His Majesty's Navy. Technically, the law stated they were only supposed to take men between 18 and 55 who already had sea experience. But in practice, if the Navy needed bodies, the press gangs took whoever they could get their hands on. Farmers, blacksmiths, bakers, didn't matter. They'd learn the ropes or die trying. The press gangs weren't just operating in Britain either. They'd board merchant ships at sea and simply take the men they wanted. American ships were particularly targeted, which became one of the causes of the War of 1812. By some estimates, over half of the 120,000 men in the Royal Navy at the time of Trafalgar had been pressed into service. You roll out of your hammock and drop to the deck, bare feet slapping against the damp wood. Around you, dozens of other sailors are doing the same, a chaotic scramble of limbs and curses in the dim light of a few lanterns. You've got about 5 minutes to get your hammock stowed and get up on deck. The hammock isn't just where you sleep, it's also your coffin if you die at sea. The canvas that cradles you at night will wrap your body before you're consigned to the deep. Cheery thought to start your day, right? You quickly roll up your hammock, securing it with a piece of cord, and carry it up to the deck where it's stowed in the hammock nettings that line the sides of the ship. These serve a dual purpose. They keep the sleeping area clear during the day and provide some protection against musket fire during battle. On deck, the sky is just beginning to lighten, a hint of pink on the eastern horizon. The air is blessedly fresh after the stink below decks. Hundreds of men are assembling, barefoot on the scrubbed wooden planks. The ship itself is massive, over 200 feet long for a first-rate ship of the line like HMS Victory, Nelson's flagship. Every morning begins the same way in the Royal Navy, with cleaning. Cleanliness, it turns out, is actually next to godliness on these wooden worlds. The entire crew sets to work scrubbing the decks with holy stone, literally chunks of sandstone used to scour the wooden planks. You're handed a brush and a bucket of seawater and pointed toward a section of deck. The work is back-breaking, on your hands and knees, scrubbing alongside dozens of other men, the salt water burning any cuts on your hands. But there's a rhythm to it, a shared purpose. Napoleon himself, when briefly a prisoner of the Royal Navy in 1815, commented on how spotlessly clean British ships were kept. And with good reason. In these tightly packed communities, disease was the real killer, not enemy cannon. Daily cleaning was one of the ways the Navy kept sickness at bay, so you scrub until your knees are raw and your back aches, but the deck gleams in the morning sun. With the ship cleaned, it's time for breakfast. You line up with your messmates, usually about 8 men who eat together, and collect your food from the ship's cook. Contrary to popular belief, food in Nelson's Navy was actually not terrible. I mean, it wasn't great, but compared to what poor people ate on land in the early 1800s, it was pretty decent. The Navy looked after its sailors. They needed strong men to work the ships and fight battles. Today's breakfast is ship's biscuit, a rock-hard piece of bread that could potentially break your teeth if you're not careful. You dip it in your beer, yes, beer for breakfast, to soften it up. The Royal Navy gave each sailor a gallon of beer a day, though it was weaker than what we drink today. It wasn't for getting drunk, it was because the beer was often safer than water. The biscuit might have little black specks in it, weevils that have made their home in the flour. You pick them out if you're new to sea life. After a few months, you'll just eat them for the extra protein. If you're lucky, there might be some salted pork or beef to go with your biscuit. The meat would have been packed in barrels of salt, sometimes years before. By the time it reaches your plate, it's so hard you could, as sailors joked, varnish it and use it as wood. Still, it's protein, and you need your strength for what's coming next. After breakfast, the real work begins. If you thought scrubbing the deck was hard, you haven't seen anything yet. The captain appears on the quarterdeck, resplendent in his blue coat with gold epaulets. On a ship of war, the captain is God. His word is absolute law. A good captain can make life tolerable, even pleasant at times. A bad one can make it hell on water. Today, you're going to learn the ropes. Literally. A sailing ship of this era is an intricate machine powered entirely by wind and human muscle. HMS Victory, Nelson's flagship, had 37 sails with a combined area of nearly an acre. Controlling those sails required 26 miles of rope and the coordinated effort of hundreds of men. The boatswain's mate assigns you to a group heading aloft, up into the rigging. You look up at the towering masts. The main mast on Victory stood 205 feet tall, equivalent to a 20-story building today, and you're expected to climb it without safety equipment in all weather conditions, day or night. Your palms start to sweat as you grab the ratlines, the rope ladders that lead up the shrouds toward the tops, platforms partway up each mast. The hemp is rough against your hands as you start to climb. Don't look down, just keep going. The ship rolls gently in the swell, making the mast sway slightly. What seems like a small movement at deck level becomes a dramatic arc the higher you go. Your heart pounds in your chest, but the experienced sailors are scrambling past you like monkeys, laughing at your hesitation. You finally reach the top, a platform about the size of a small bedroom where the lower and upper sections of the mast join. From here, the view is breathtaking. Endless blue ocean stretching to the horizon. The ship looks tiny below you, the men on deck like ants. But there's no time to enjoy the view. You're here to learn how to handle the sails. The real topmen, the elite sailors who work the highest sails, are already climbing higher, out along the yards, the horizontal spars that hold the sails, with nothing but a foot rope to stand on. These men are the athletes of the ship. They work in howling winds, lashing rain, and crushing heat, furling and unfurling massive canvas sails, adjusting them precisely to the captain's orders relayed by shouted commands and whistle signals from below. And they do it hundreds of feet in the air, with one slip meaning certain death. During battle, they continue this work while cannonballs tear through the rigging around them, severing ropes and sometimes limbs. You're not ready for that yet. You're assigned simpler tasks on the lower sails, learning the names and functions of dozens of lines. There's the halyards, sheets, braces, clew lines, bunt lines, and dozens more. Each has a specific purpose in controlling the complex sail plan. It's overwhelming, but you have no choice but to learn quickly. Mistakes up here can be fatal, not just for you, but potentially for the entire ship if a sail is mishandled in a storm. As you work, the more experienced sailors teach you the ropes, literally and figuratively. They show you how to tie the essential knots, the bowline, clove hitch, sheet bend, and others. Your hands, soft from landsman's work, begin to blister and bleed. Within weeks, they'll be calloused and strong. The work never stops. When you're not handling sails, you're maintaining them, repairing tiers, replacing worn lines, tarring the standing rigging to protect it from the elements. The ship is in constant motion, and so are you. By midday, your muscles are screaming. The sun beats down on your back, already turning red with sunburn. There's no sunscreen in 1805, just the gradual toughening of skin or the protection of a sailcloth shirt if you're lucky enough to have one. You descend to the deck for the midday meal. More ship's biscuit, perhaps some dried peas boiled into a soup, maybe a bit of cheese. On Thursdays and Sundays there might be a steamed pudding, duff in sailors' parlance, a rare sweet treat in this harsh world. The food is washed down with more beer, or if that's run out, as it often did on long voyages, with grog, rum mixed with water, a daily ration that simultaneously lifted spirits and dulled the pain of this brutal existence. Nelson himself was a strong advocate for proper feeding of his men, knowing that well-fed sailors were both healthier and happier. After the brief respite of lunch, it's back to work. The afternoon might bring gun drills, learning how to operate the massive cannon that line the gun decks. A first-rate ship like Victory carried 104 guns, the largest weighing over 3 tons each. Each gun required a crew of at least 6 men working in perfect coordination to load, aim, and fire. They practiced until they could do it blindfolded, able to reload and fire a cannon every 90 seconds or so, the best gun crews in the world. Loading these monsters was a complex dance. First, the powder monkey, often a ship's boy as young as 10 or 12, would bring a flannel bag of gunpowder from the magazine deep in the ship. The gun captain would use a long needle-like tool to puncture the bag through the cannon's touch hole, then pour fine powder into the hole. Another sailor would ram home the main powder charge, followed by the cannonball itself, using a long wooden ramrod. When the order to fire came, the gun captain would touch a smouldering slow match to the primed touch hole. The resulting explosion would send a 32-pound iron ball hurtling toward the enemy at around 1,000 feet per second. The recoil would send the cannon rolling backward on its carriage, straining against the thick ropes, the breeching that kept it from careening across the deck. Then the crew would use block and tackle to haul the massive gun back into position for reloading. All this in a space about 7 feet high, filled with choking smoke, deafening noise, and dozens of other gun crews doing the same thing. In battle, the gun deck was literally hell on earth, hot, smoky, and incredibly loud. Men routinely lost their hearing after years of naval service. But battle was rare. Day-to-day life was an endless cycle of work, watches, and more work. The ship operated on a watch system, dividing the crew into 2 groups that alternated duty, 4 hours on, 4 hours off, around the clock, except for the dog watches in the evening, which were only 2 hours each, designed to rotate the schedule so men didn't always stand watch at the same time. This meant that you never got more than 4 consecutive hours of sleep, ever, for years at a time. As the afternoon wears on, dark clouds begin to gather on the horizon. The wind freshens, the sea grows choppy. The captain orders a reduction in sail. Now comes another test of the crew's skill and coordination. Shortening sail on a square-rigged vessel requires hundreds of men working together, each knowing their exact role. The process must be done quickly but carefully. Too slow, and the ship could be caught with too much canvas in a sudden squall. Too hasty, and vital equipment could be damaged. Orders are shouted, whistles blown. Men scramble up the ratlines again, out along the yards. You join them, your earlier fear now tempered with a bit of hard-won confidence. The ship pitches more violently now, the motion at the top of the mast amplified tenfold. You cling to the yard with one arm while using the other to help gather in the massive expanse of canvas. The wind rises further, rain begins to fall, the footing on the yard becomes treacherous, the rope slippery in your hands. One mistake, one slip, and you'll fall 100 feet to the deck or into the churning sea. Both equally fatal, but you don't fall. Somehow, despite the fear and exhaustion, you complete your task. The sail is furled, secured with gaskets against the yard. You make your way back down to the deck, legs shaky but alive. The storm hits in earnest now. Rain lashes the deck, the wind howls through the rigging, the ship heels over under the pressure, waves breaking over the bow. This is the true test of a warship and her crew, not just fighting the enemy, but fighting the sea itself. In the waist of the ship, waves wash across the deck, soaking everyone to the skin. The temperature drops as evening approaches. There's no chance to change into dry clothes. You'll work in what you're wearing until your watch ends, then perhaps hang your clothes to dry while you sleep naked in your hammock, hoping they'll be merely damp rather than soaking when you need them again 4 hours later. Through the storm, the work continues, adjusting sails, manning the pumps that keep the ship from filling with water through her inevitably leaky seams, maintaining course as best as possible with a crew of men straining at the whipstaff, the lever that controls the rudder on these massive vessels. As darkness falls, the storm begins to ease. The sky clears, revealing a canopy of stars undiminished by light pollution. On clear nights like this, the beauty of the ocean can momentarily make you forget the hardships. Your watch finally ends. Exhausted beyond belief, you make your way below decks to string up your hammock again. Your hands are raw, your muscles aching, your clothes still damp, but there's a strange satisfaction in having survived the day, in being part of something bigger than yourself. You crawl into your hammock, the gentle swaying now a comfort rather than a discomfort. Around you, men are already snoring. Some are mending clothes by the dim light of a lantern, others quietly talking or playing cards. A few are writing letters that may never reach home. In 4 hours, the whistle will blow again and you'll rise for the middle watch, midnight to 4 a.m. But for now, you can rest. Your body feels heavy against the canvas, muscles relaxing as you settle deeper into that perfect spot in your hammock. The rhythmic creaking of the ship becomes a lullaby as your eyes grow heavy, the gentle rocking carrying you towards sleep as the mighty warship continues its journey through the night, carrying you toward. The whistle pierces your dreams like a needle through cloth. Your 4 hours of precious sleep vanish in an instant. It's the middle watch, midnight to 4 a.m., the most dreaded hours of the naval day. Around you, men groan and curse as they roll from their hammocks. Your muscles protest every movement, still aching from yesterday's labours, but there's no mercy in Lord Nelson's navy. The ship needs its crew awake and alert, regardless of the hour. You climb to the deck into a world of deep blues and blacks. The moon casts a silver path across the waves. The air is cool against your skin, the deck damp with night dew beneath your bare feet. Most of the sails are set, the ship moving steadily through the darkness. Stars wheel slowly overhead, the ancient navigation points that sailors have used for centuries. The officer of the watch nods as your section reports. He's a young lieutenant, perhaps only 20 years old, but with the confidence of a man twice his age. The Royal Navy promoted on merit as well as connection. Nelson himself became a captain before his 21st birthday. Age meant little. Ability meant everything. Your task tonight is simple but vital. Keeping lookout. You're stationed in the bow, eyes straining into the darkness ahead, watching for other ships, unexpected land or floating hazards. The safety of hundreds of men depends on your vigilance. The monotony is broken only by the striking of the ship's bell every half hour, marking the slow passage of time. Your mind wanders as you scan the horizon. You think about the strange hierarchical world you now inhabit. A ship of the line is not just a warship, it's a floating society with rigid classes and divisions. At the top stands the captain, a near deity whose word is literally law at sea. He has private quarters at the stern, eats the best food, and often has personal servants. Some captains rarely interact with their crew, ruling through their officers. Others, like Nelson, knew their men by name and earned fierce loyalty through fair treatment. Below the captain are the commissioned officers, lieutenants, the master, responsible for navigation, the surgeon, the purser, who handles supplies and pay, and the marine officers. These men are gentlemen, often from good families, educated and literate. They occupy the wardroom, a shared living space where they dine together and socialise. Then come the warrant officers, the boatswain, carpenter, gunner, and others with specialised skills. They form a middle class between the gentlemen officers and the common sailors. At the bottom of the hierarchy are the ordinary and able seamen, men like you, who do the hard physical labour of sailing the ship. Within this group is another hierarchy based on experience and skill. The truly skilled sailors, topmen who work the highest sails, helmsmen who steer the ship, and experienced gun captains earn respect and sometimes better treatment. Below, even the ordinary seamen are the landsmen, men with no maritime experience pressed into service, and the ship's boys, some as young as 8 or 9 years old, learning the trade from the bottom up. And then there's the Marines, soldiers stationed on warships to maintain order, fight in boarding actions and serve as sharpshooters during battle. They live in a world apart, often looking down on sailors while being looked down upon by naval officers. This complex society is bound together by discipline, harsh, sometimes brutal discipline that would shock modern sensibilities. But in a world where one mistake could sink a ship and drown hundreds, strict order was considered essential. As if reading your thoughts, there's a commotion amidships. Even in the darkness, you can make out a group of men assembling. It's a punishment detail. Someone's about to learn the cost of disobedience in His Majesty's Navy. Word passes quickly through the watch. A sailor was caught stealing rum from the spirit room. In the morning, the entire crew will witness his punishment, but for now, he's been confined in irons on the deck, exposed to the elements all night, a preview of worse to come. Theft was considered among the most serious offences on a naval vessel. When hundreds of men live in close quarters with limited supplies, stealing from your shipmates wasn't just a crime, it was a betrayal of the communal trust that kept everyone alive. The bell rings again, another half hour gone. The night seems endless, but eventually the eastern sky begins to lighten. Your watch is nearly done. As the sun breaks the horizon, painting the clouds in brilliant oranges and pinks, the rest of the crew begins to stir. Another day in Nelson's Navy has begun. After being relieved from watch, you have just enough time to grab a quick breakfast before the summons comes. All hands are called to witness punishment. The entire crew, hundreds of men, assemble on the deck. Marines with fixed bayonets ensure everyone is present. The captain emerges from his cabin in full dress uniform. He stands on the quarterdeck, looking down at the assembled crew. Beside him, a lieutenant holds open a book, the Articles of War, the naval code that governs life at sea. In a solemn voice, the lieutenant reads the relevant article regarding theft and its punishment. The accused is brought forward, his face a mask of resigned terror. He knows what's coming. "Strip to the waist," orders the boatswain. The sailor removes his shirt, revealing a back already marked with the scars of previous floggings. He's tied to a wooden grating, arms spread wide, feet secured at the bottom. The boatswain produces the infamous cat-o'-nine-tails, a whip with 9 knotted cords that will tear into the man's flesh. In the Royal Navy, flogging was the primary means of maintaining discipline. Minor infractions might earn a dozen lashes, more serious ones, many more. The captain pronounces the sentence, 2 dozen lashes. Not the worst punishment, that would be reserved for desertion or mutiny, but enough to leave the man's back a bloody mess and serve as a warning to others. The boatswain takes position. The crowd falls silent. The only sound is the creaking of the ship and the snap of the flag overhead. Then comes the whistle of the cat through the air and the sickening sound of knotted rope striking flesh. The sailor jerks against his bonds but makes no sound. To cry out would only add shame to his punishment. 1, 2, 3. The methodical count continues, each stroke laying open the man's back a little more. By the 12th stroke, blood is flowing freely. By the 24th, his back is a mass of torn flesh. Throughout it all, the captain watches impassively. This is not cruelty for cruelty's sake. It's the system that maintains order on a vessel where one man's mistake could doom hundreds. When it's done, the man is cut down. The surgeon steps forward to clean and dress the wounds. Salt water first, which must be agonizing, then a simple bandage. The sailor will be expected back at his duties within days, his punishment complete. The crew is dismissed, the day's routine begins. But the message is clear. In Nelson's Navy, the rules are enforced with brutal efficiency. Despite the harshness, most sailors accepted the system. Some ships' companies even flogged their own members during the rare mutinies, recognizing the need for discipline even when rebelling against authority. Not all captains were equally harsh. Nelson himself was known for maintaining discipline with minimal flogging, preferring to lead through inspiration rather than fear. But even under the most humane captain, life at sea was governed by strict rules with painful consequences for breaking them. The sun climbs higher, the day grows warmer, your watch is over, but there's no rest. Every sailor not on watch has other duties, maintaining the ship, practicing with the guns, repairing sails and rigging. Idleness is not tolerated. Today you're assigned to the carpenter's crew. The ship is constantly working against itself, timbers flexing and straining with every wave, seams open, allowing water to seep in. Your job is to help find and repair these leaks before they become serious. You descend into the bowels of the ship, down to the bilge where seawater collects. The stench is overwhelming, a foul mixture of rotting wood, stagnant water, and the thousands of rats that infest every naval vessel. You wade through shallow water, checking the hull, planking for signs of leakage. It's dark work, lit only by the occasional lantern. The ship's lowest spaces are barely 5 feet high, forcing you to stoop constantly. The heat is stifling, the air thick and foul. Sweat pours from your body as you work, mixing with the bilge water. The carpenter shows you how to identify trouble spots and make temporary repairs. Oakum, unraveled rope fibers mixed with tar, forced into leaking seams, wooden plugs hammered into more significant holes. It's endless, filthy work, but essential. A ship that can't keep the sea out is a ship that will sink. After hours in the stinking darkness, you emerge into blessed sunlight. Your clothes are soaked with sweat and bilge water. Your hands raw from working with tar and rough wood. But there's no time to clean up. The boatswain's pipe is calling all hands to a new task. Word has spread through the ship. A sail has been spotted on the horizon. It could be nothing, a friendly merchant or another British warship, but it could also be the enemy. In wartime, every unknown vessel is a potential threat. The captain orders the ship cleared for action, the naval equivalent of battle stations. It's a complex process that transforms the vessel from a floating community to a pure instrument of war. All non-essential items are stowed below. Hammocks are brought up from below and stuffed into the netting along the ship's sides, providing additional protection against enemy fire. Gun ports are opened, cannon run out, powder monkeys, ship's boys assigned to carry ammunition take their positions near the magazines. Marines climb into the fighting tops, muskets ready. The ship's surgeon and his mates prepare the cockpit, the space below decks where the wounded will be treated. They lay out their instruments, saws, knives, probes, and ready bandages and tourniquets. In the age before anesthesia or antiseptics, naval surgery was brutal but efficient. Wounded men would be brought below, given a leather strap to bite on, and have shattered limbs amputated in minutes. Many died from shock or subsequent infection, but those who survived often returned to duty. As the ship approaches the unknown vessel, tension builds. Men speak in hushed tones or not at all, each preparing in his own way for what might come. Veterans check their weapons and equipment with practiced efficiency. Newer sailors, including you, try to copy their calm demeanor while fighting rising panic. Battle at sea in the age of sail was a special kind of hell. Ships would maneuver for advantage, trying to position themselves to fire full broadsides into the enemy while minimizing their own exposure. When the cannon opened fire, they turned the ordered world of the ship into chaos. A single broadside from a first-rate ship like Victory unleashed over 500 pounds of iron, fired from cannon packed so closely together that gunners could touch elbows with the next gun crew. The noise was beyond deafening. It was physically painful, a wall of sound that could rupture eardrums and stun the unprepared. And the casualties were horrific. Cannonballs tore through wooden hulls, sending deadly splinters, some as long as a man's arm, scything through flesh. Grape-shot, bags of musket balls fired from cannon, turned decks into slaughterhouses. Chain-shot, 2 balls connected by a length of chain, was designed to cut through rigging and bring down masts, often crushing sailors beneath tons of falling wood. But the greatest horror was below decks, where gun crews fought in dim light, choking smoke and confined spaces. A direct hit could send a cannon careening across the deck, crushing everything in its path. Fires were a constant danger, and throughout it all, men had to continue loading and firing with mechanical precision, ignoring the carnage around them. You stand at your assigned position, heart pounding in your chest. The unknown ship grows larger on the horizon. Through the speaking trumpet, the captain orders the gunners to stand ready. The gun captain near you spits on the deck and mumbles a prayer. Everyone waits. Then, blessed relief, the mysterious vessel hoists British colours, friendly, not foe. The tension drains away, replaced by nervous laughter and excited chatter. The captain orders the ship to resume normal operations. You've been spared the test of battle, at least for today. But it will come. In Nelson's navy during the Napoleonic Wars, combat was a near certainty. The British fleet maintained blockades of French ports for years on end, occasionally engaging in massive fleet actions like Trafalgar, where Nelson would eventually meet his end. As evening approaches, the ship settles back into its routine. Watches change, meals are served, maintenance continues. You're assigned to the evening watch, standing lookout as the sun begins to set. The beauty of sunset at sea is something few landsmen ever witness. The sky becomes a canvas of impossible colours, deep oranges, purples, pinks, reflected perfectly in the calm waters. For a moment, the hardships of naval life fade against this spectacular backdrop. The boatswain appears beside you, a grizzled veteran missing 2 fingers from his left hand, lost in some forgotten action years ago. He gestures toward the sunset. Pretty, ain't it? That's why we come back, lad. Not for the food or the lashes or the bloody Frenchies trying to kill us for moments like this. He's right, you realise. Despite everything, the harsh discipline, the dangerous work, the cramped conditions, the bad food, there's something about this life that gets into a sailor's blood. The camaraderie of shared hardship, the pride of being part of the most powerful navy on earth, the rare perfect moments like this when the sea and sky conspire to create beauty beyond description. The boatswain leaves you to your watch and you settle into the gentle rhythm of the ship. The motion that made you violently ill when you first came aboard now feels natural, even comforting. The creaking of timbers and flapping of canvas form a familiar symphony. You're learning the ways of the sea, becoming a sailor in truth as well as name. As darkness falls, the stars emerge, countless points of light in a velvet sky. Navigation by stars is an ancient art, one that connects modern sailors to those who plied these waters thousands of years ago. The quartermaster takes sightings with his instruments, calculating the ship's position with remarkable accuracy. The night grows cool but not cold. You're somewhere in the Mediterranean, hunting French ships that might threaten British interests. Nelson spent years in these waters, becoming the scourge of Napoleon's naval ambitions. His victory at the Battle of the Nile in 1798 had destroyed French naval power in the Mediterranean and made him a national hero. You wonder if you'll ever witness a battle like that. Ships of the line arranged in deadly formation, hundreds of cannon firing in choreographed destruction. Part of you hopes you will, to test your courage. Another part prays you never face such terror. The ship's bell sounds, marking the end of another half hour. Time passes differently at sea, both agonizingly slow during long watches and alarmingly fast when viewed across weeks and months. Men who signed on for a single voyage often found themselves still serving years later, unable to leave while the war continued. Some spent their entire adult lives at sea, knowing no other world than the wooden universe of naval vessels. They developed their own language, customs, and superstitions, a distinct culture separate from the land they nominally served. As your watch ends, you're relieved by another sailor. You exchange a few words about conditions and observations, then head below to get some rest before your next duty period. The ship never sleeps, its rhythms continuing through all hours, propelled by the overlapping watches of its crew. You find your hammock space, string up your canvas bed, and gratefully climb in. Your body aches from the day's work, but it's a productive ache, the kind that comes from effort rather than illness. You're growing stronger, your hands toughening into a sailor's calloused paws, your skin darkening under the Mediterranean sun. Sleep comes quickly, your body learning to take rest whenever possible. The gentle swaying of the hammock cradles you, muscles relaxing as you drift toward dreams. Around you, off-duty sailors snore and mumble, some talking in their sleep of homes left behind or battles fought long ago. You're becoming part of this floating world, finding your place in the complex social structure of a warship. It's a hard life, perhaps the hardest you could have chosen or had thrust upon you, but there's purpose here and pride in doing difficult things well. As consciousness fades, you wonder what tomorrow will bring. Another day of routine maintenance and drills, or perhaps the sighting of an enemy fleet and the chaos of battle. In Nelson's Navy, either was possible. Your breathing slows, body settling deeper into the hammock, finding that perfect spot where the canvas cradles you just right. The sounds of the ship fade as sleep approaches, the creaking of timbers, the soft footfalls of the watch above, the gentle slosh of water against the hull. Your muscles relax one by one, tension draining away as the motion of the ship rocks you towards slumber. Dawn breaks with no whistle, no shouted orders. For once, you're allowed to sleep through until your natural waking. It's Sunday, the one day of relative peace in the otherwise relentless rhythm of naval life. You stretch in your hammock, savouring the extra hour of rest. A luxury almost unimaginable in your new existence. Sundays in the Royal Navy were special. When not in battle or severe weather, it was a day for cleaning, personal grooming, and divine service. Nelson, like many captains, took religion seriously. Despite his own complicated personal life, his famous affair with Lady Emma Hamilton scandalised proper society. He maintained strict religious observance aboard his ships. You roll from your hammock, noting how much easier the motion has become with practice. Your sea legs have developed, the constant swaying of the ship now feels normal, even comforting. You gather your meagre possessions for the weekly inspection, your second set of clothes, your small kit of personal items, perhaps a book or memento from home if you're fortunate enough to have one. On deck, the scene is different from other mornings. Men are shaving or cutting each other's hair, mending clothes, writing letters home that might not be delivered for months or years. There's a relaxed quality to the work, a small respite in the punishing schedule. The ship itself gleams in the morning light, every surface scrubbed to perfection the day before. Even the brass fittings on the cannon shine like gold in the sunlight. The British Navy's obsession with cleanliness wasn't just about appearance, it was a practical matter of health and morale. Clean ships had less disease, and men took pride in a vessel that sparkled. At mid-morning, the boatswain's call summons all hands for Sunday service. The crew assembles on the main deck, officers on the quarterdeck above. Some ships carried chaplains, but most relied on the captain to conduct religious services. He would read from the Book of Common Prayer, perhaps offer a sermon and lead the crew in hymns. Even on warships with hundreds of men from diverse backgrounds, some pressed on willingly into service, these services were remarkably solemn affairs. Religion provided structure and meaning in a dangerous world where death could come at any moment, from enemy action, accident, or disease. After the service comes the highlight of the naval week, Sunday dinner, the one meal where the quality and quantity of food noticeably improved. The cook has been preparing since dawn, creating the closest thing to a feast possible with naval provisions. Your mess, the group of about 8 men who eat together, gathers around your table space. Today's meal might include salt beef that's been soaked to remove some of the brine, peas pudding, perhaps even a steamed dessert called duff, a dense, sweet pudding that was the highlight of naval cuisine. The food is served in wooden bowls or on wooden plates, eaten with spoons or fingers. Each mess elected a mess cook from among their number, rotating the duty weekly. This unlucky individual collected the food from the ship's cook, divided it equally, and cleaned up afterward. Unfair division would lead to swift and vocal complaints. In the tight community of a ship, food was too important for favoritism. Some messes developed elaborate systems to ensure fairness, like the one cuts, other chooses method for dividing meat portions. As you eat, conversation flows more freely than usual. Sunday is a day for storytelling, for sharing news and gossip from around the ship. Veterans tell tales of great battles they've witnessed or famous officers they've served under. Some stories grow with each telling, naval legends expanding like sails in a favourable wind. Talk eventually turns to Nelson himself, the most famous admiral of the age. Though relatively few sailors had actually met him personally, his reputation spread throughout the fleet. Unlike some senior officers who were feared or hated, Nelson was genuinely beloved by ordinary seamen. "Saw him once at Portsmouth," says an old gunner's mate, "missing an arm and an eye, but walked like he was 10 feet tall. Nodded to us common sailors like we mattered." Nelson had lost his right eye in Corsica in 1794 and his right arm in Tenerife in 1797. Rather than ending his career, these injuries became part of his legend. He drove himself relentlessly, never using his wounds as an excuse. This earned him tremendous respect from men who lived in a world where physical hardship was a daily reality. But it wasn't just courage that made Nelson special. It was his genuine concern for the men under his command. He fought for better food and medical care for sailors. He knew hundreds of men by name and took an interest in their welfare. And most importantly, his brilliant tactics minimized British casualties while maximizing damage to the enemy. After dinner, the brief holiday atmosphere continues. The captain might allow limited gambling, dice or cards that would be prohibited on work days. Musicians among the crew bring out fiddles, flutes or tin whistles, playing the popular tunes of the day. Some men dance, others sing along or simply listen, enjoying the rare entertainment. Sailors made their own amusements during free time. Some were skilled carvers, creating intricate scrimshaw designs on whale teeth or bone, or crafting detailed model ships inside bottles. Others practiced knotwork, creating decorative patterns with rope that also served to display their skill with a sailor's most essential tool. Literacy varied widely. Officers were generally well educated, while common seamen might be completely illiterate or surprisingly well read. Ships sometimes had small libraries, and books were precious commodities traded or shared among the literate crew members. Reading aloud was common, allowing those who couldn't read to still enjoy stories. For the illiterate majority, oral tradition remained strong. Sea shanties, work songs with call and response patterns, helped synchronize effort during labor like hauling on ropes or raising anchor. Other songs told stories of naval victories, doomed romances, or the hardships of a sailor's life. As afternoon drifts toward evening, you notice a change in the atmosphere. The relaxed mood gradually shifts as men prepare for the return to normal routine at midnight. Some head below early, trying to store up extra sleep before their watches resume. You find yourself on the forecastle, the raised deck at the front of the ship, watching the sun begin its descent toward the horizon. The Mediterranean stretches endlessly in all directions, the water changing from blue to gold in the late light. An older sailor joins you, pipe in hand. He's been in the Navy for over 20 years, serving on everything from small sloops to ships of the line. The sea is written in the weathered lines of his face, in the permanent squint of his eyes from years of looking into sun and wind. "Thinking about home, lad?" he asks, tamping tobacco into his pipe. You admit that you are, describing the small coastal town where you grew up, the family you left behind, whether by choice or by force of the press gang. He nods sagely. We all do, at first. After a while, the ship becomes home. Your messmates become family. Still miss the old country now and then, but it gets easier. He lights his pipe, shielding the match from the sea breeze with a cupped hand. The sweet smell of tobacco drifts between you. "You know why Nelson's the best?" he asks suddenly, changing the subject. "It's not just that he wins. Plenty of admirals win battles. It's that he wins while looking after his men, doesn't waste lives to make himself look good." This was a crucial part of Nelson's genius. Traditional naval tactics involved ships sailing in rigid lines, exchanging broadsides with the enemy in formal, almost ritualistic combat. It was organized but often indecisive, with neither side gaining a clear advantage despite hours of fighting. Nelson broke these rules. At the Battle of the Nile in 1798, he'd attacked the anchored French fleet at night, something considered nearly impossible before he did it. By sailing between the French ships and the shore, he caught them unprepared, their shoreward guns not ready for action. The result was one of the most decisive naval victories in history. Been with the fleet since before Aboukir Bay, the old sailor continues, using the alternative name for the Battle of the Nile. Saw what he did to the French there. Pure genius it was. They never knew what hit them. He describes the battle in vivid detail, the shock of the French as British ships appeared where they couldn't possibly be, the thunderous roar of cannon fire, the night sky lit by burning ships. The French flagship L'Orient exploded during the battle with such force that both fleets stopped firing for 10 minutes, stunned by the destruction. And after, Nelson made sure we rescued French sailors from the water. Enemy or not, they were seamen like us. That's why the men love him. He understands the brotherhood of the sea. This too was part of Nelson's character, a combination of ruthless tactical brilliance in battle and genuine humanity toward both his own men and defeated enemies. He fought to destroy France's naval power, not to kill French sailors unnecessarily. The old sailor falls silent, puffing contentedly on his pipe as the sun touches the horizon. The moment feels suspended in time. The golden light, the gentle motion of the ship, the distant sounds of the crew preparing for evening. He taps his pipe against the rail, emptying the ashes into the sea. "Get some rest while you can, lad. Tomorrow's back to the grind." As he walks away, you remain at the rail, watching the sun slip below the horizon in a final blaze of colour. The first stars appear in the darkening eastern sky, another day at sea ending, another night beginning. You think about what the old sailor said about the ship becoming home. There's truth in it. Despite the hardships, or perhaps because of them, you're developing a connection to this wooden world. The shared dangers and challenges create bonds stronger than many experience on land. As dusk deepens into true night, you head below to string your hammock. Around you, the off-duty portion of the crew prepares for sleep or quiet conversation by lantern light. Some play quiet games of cards, others write in journals or read dog-eared books passed from sailor to sailor. In one corner, a small group has gathered around a sailor skilled at spinning yarns. His hushed voice carries tales of sea monsters and ghost ships, of mermaids and buried treasure, the folklore of men who live at the mercy of an element they can never truly tame. You listen from your hammock. The fantastic stories, a pleasant diversion from the harsh realities of naval life. Even the most hardened sailors maintained superstitions and beliefs that landsmen might find childish. But at sea, where disaster could strike without warning, and survival often seemed as much a matter of luck as skill, these stories provided comfort. The storyteller finishes with a tale of a phantom ship that appears before storms, a warning to those wise enough to heed it. His audience disperses to their hammocks, some making small protective gestures against bad luck, touching wood or iron, muttering brief charms. You settle into your hammock, pulling your thin blanket against the night's chill. Despite the superstitious talk, you feel strangely secure, nestled in the heart of this massive vessel with hundreds of men around you, all part of the same floating community. Sleep comes easily after the relatively restful day. Your body has learned to take rest whenever possible, storing energy for the demands to come. The gentle rocking of the ship in the calm Mediterranean waters lulls you deeper, muscles relaxing one by one. You dream of battles you haven't yet seen, of cannon fire and splintering wood, of Nelson in his gold-braided uniform directing the fleet to victory. In your dream, you perform acts of incredible courage, saving shipmates and defeating the enemy through quick thinking and skill. The dream shifts, and you're back home, trying to explain to family what life at sea is truly like, but the words won't come. How can you describe this world to those who haven't lived it? The smells, the sounds, the constant motion, the peculiar combination of boredom and terror that defines naval existence. You're awakened before dawn by the familiar whistle and shouts. Sunday's respite is over. The relentless routine of the Navy resumes. You roll from your hammock, still half in your dream world, then shake yourself fully awake. No time for lingering in bed aboard a warship. The day begins as all days do, with cleaning. The holy stones come out. Men drop to hands and knees to scrub the decks. The work is as hard as ever, but somehow you find it less overwhelming than before. Your body is adapting, growing stronger. Tasks that once left you exhausted now merely leave you tired. After breakfast comes a surprise announcement. Battle drills. The captain wants to test the crew's readiness to ensure that Sunday's relaxation hasn't dulled their edge. The order, clear for action, sends hundreds of men into controlled chaos. You take your assigned position, helping to prepare the gun deck. Wooden partitions that divide living spaces are dismantled and stowed. Gun ports are opened, cannon run out. Sand is scattered on the decks to provide traction when they become slick with blood. The surgeon and his mates set up their grim workspace below, ready to deal with the wounded. The transformation is remarkable. In less than 15 minutes, the ship has changed from a floating village to a pure weapon of war. Every man knows his place, his specific tasks. The gun crews stand ready at their massive weapons. Marines take positions in the fighting tops with their muskets. Officers check that all is in order. The captain inspects the ship, moving methodically from station to station. He's accompanied by his lieutenants, each responsible for different sections of the vessel. Their trained eyes miss nothing. A gun not properly secured, a man out of position, equipment not ready for use. Overall, he seems pleased. There are a few sharp words for minor deficiencies, but the crew has performed well. The captain reminds everyone that their lives depend on this readiness. In battle, seconds matter. A gun fired a moment too late, a sail adjusted too slowly. These small failures could mean defeat and death. After the drill, normal duties resume. For you, that means working with the sailmaker's crew, repairing damaged canvas. It's detailed work, requiring strength to push needles through tough material and skill to create seams that won't fail in high winds. The sailmaker himself is a true craftsman, able to judge by eye exactly how a patch should be shaped or a seam reinforced. He teaches as he works, passing on knowledge that has been accumulated over centuries of sailing ships. You watch his gnarled hands move with surprising grace, creating tiny, perfect stitches that will hold against the power of the wind. This is how naval skills were transmitted, through direct apprenticeship. Books on seamanship existed, but practical knowledge passed from experienced sailors to novices through observation and practice. You learn to feel when a sail has the right tension, to hear when a line needs adjustment, to smell when weather is changing. By midday, your fingers are sore from pushing the heavy needle through canvas, but you've completed several repairs under the sailmaker's approving eye. There's satisfaction in the work, in acquiring skills that have real value in this world. After the midday meal, you're assigned to a different task, helping the gunner's mates maintain the cannon. These massive weapons require constant attention to remain functional in the corrosive sea environment. You learn to clean each part, to check for dangerous cracks in the metal, to ensure that the wheels and tackles move smoothly. The gunner shows you how to mix the precise consistency of tallow and beeswax that protects metal parts from rust. It's meticulous work. A cannon that fails during battle is worse than useless. It's a deadly hazard to its own crew. The hours pass in focused labour. The ship continues its patrol, searching for French vessels that might have escaped the blockade. Lookouts scan the horizon constantly, alert for the telltale shape of sails or the distant smudge of smoke that might indicate ships in distress. As evening approaches, you're sent aloft to help adjust the sails for the night. The climb up the ratlines is almost routine now, your initial terror replaced by cautious confidence. You still respect the height and danger, but you no longer freeze with fear. From the top, the view remains breathtaking. The ship looks impossibly small below, the vast sea stretching to the curved horizon in all directions. The setting sun turns the water to molten gold, the sky to watercolour washes of orange and purple. You finish your work and descend as darkness falls. The night watch takes their positions, lanterns are lit, the ship settles into its evening routine. After dinner, you have a brief period of free time before your watch begins at midnight. Some men are playing cards by lantern light, others mending clothes or writing letters. A few are already asleep, storing energy for the middle watch. You find a quiet corner and take out the small wooden piece you've been carving in odd moments, a gift for one of your messmates whose birthday approaches. The simple act of creation provides a welcome counterpoint to the structured regimen of naval life. Here, you can make your own decisions, create something that exists solely because you will it to exist. It's a small freedom, but precious in a world where most choices are made for you. Time passes quietly. You put away your carving as your watch approaches. The ship's bell sounds, marking each half-hour with increasing counts, the naval clock that structures life at sea. As you prepare to take your position for the middle watch, you realise something has changed since you first came aboard. The endless labour, the strict discipline, the discomfort and danger, none of these have disappeared, but you've found your place within this floating world, become part of its complex social fabric. Whether you came willingly or were pressed into service, you're now truly a sailor in Nelson's navy. The skills in your hands, the knowledge in your mind, the steadiness in your bearing, all mark you as part of this brotherhood of the sea. You climb to the deck under a canopy of stars, ready for your watch. The officer nods in recognition as you take your position. Around you, the great ship moves through the darkness, hundreds of men working in coordinated purpose to keep her sailing safely through the night. Your eyelids grow heavy for just a moment as you settle into your watch position, the gentle rocking of the ship creating a soothing rhythm. You shake off the momentary drowsiness, focusing on the dark horizon ahead. The cool night air feels refreshing on your face, your muscles relaxing slightly as you find that comfortable stance that lets you stay alert without unnecessary tension. The distant creaking of the rigging becomes almost musical as the distant thunder of cannon fire jolts you fully awake. Your watch has been uneventful until now, the sea calm under a blanket of stars, but that sound is unmistakable. Naval guns somewhere beyond the horizon. "Deck there!" comes a shout from the masthead lookout. Flashes to the southwest. The lieutenant of the watch is instantly alert, calling for the captain. Within minutes, the ship is alive with activity. The captain emerges from his cabin fully dressed despite the late hour. Senior officers always sleep lightly, ready to respond to emergencies. Through his telescope, the captain studies the distant flashes, brief, silent bursts of light that illuminate the night horizon. He makes a quick decision. Beat to quarters, all hands to battle stations. The drummer begins the rhythm that signals battle preparation. Men pour from below decks, taking positions with practiced efficiency. The gun crews ready their weapons. Marines assemble with muskets. Topmen prepare to make emergency sail adjustments if needed. The ship turns toward the distant battle, sails adjusted to extract maximum speed from the light night breeze. It's a slow approach. Sailing ships are at the mercy of wind and current, but steadily you draw closer to the action. As dawn breaks, the situation becomes clear. A British frigate is engaged with two French ships, fighting bravely but outmatched. Your arrival changes the equation dramatically. The French, seeing a ship of the line joining the battle, break off their attack and flee. The damaged frigate signals thanks as your ship moves alongside. Her captain comes aboard to confer with yours, bringing news from the broader fleet. Nelson is gathering forces for a major action against the combined French and Spanish fleets. All British vessels are ordered to rendezvous off Cadiz, where the enemy is blockaded. This is it, the moment every sailor in the Royal Navy has been waiting for. After years of cat-and-mouse pursuit, Nelson has the enemy cornered. The great battle that everyone senses will define the age is about to unfold. Your ship's new orders are to join Nelson's fleet immediately. The course is set, and every sail is deployed to make maximum speed. For the next several days, the routine intensifies. Gun drills become more frequent, equipment is checked and rechecked, weapons are prepared. The mood among the crew is a strange mixture of excitement and apprehension. Veterans who've seen battle before grow quieter, more focused. New sailors like yourself try to mask nervousness with bravado. Everyone feels the weight of the moment. This isn't just another patrol or skirmish. This could determine the course of the war against Napoleon. One evening, as you're working on the gun deck, the old gunner who's been teaching you stops suddenly and places a hand on your shoulder. "Listen carefully, lad," he says in a low voice. "When the real thing comes, it won't be like the drills. It'll be smoke so thick you can't see, noise so loud you can't think, men screaming, wood splintering, the deck slippery with blood." He looks at you intently, making sure his words sink in. Don't think about any of that. Think about this gun, this crew. Load, aim, fire, reload. That's your world. Nothing else matters. Do your job, and we might live through it. You nod, swallowing hard. His candor is terrifying but somehow reassuring. No false promises, no glory-filled nonsense, just the brutal reality and how to survive it. And one more thing, he adds, if I go down, you take charge of the gun. You know the drill as well as anyone now. The responsibility settles on you like a physical weight. You've come a long way from the frightened landsman first brought aboard. Whether through choice or force, you've become a sailor, trusted with duties that could determine the fate of the ship and everyone aboard her. Days pass in heightened anticipation as you sail toward the rendezvous. Then, finally, on the horizon appears a sight few ever witness, the full might of Britain's Mediterranean fleet. Dozens of ships arranged in precise formation, from massive first-rates with their 3 gun decks to nimble frigates patrolling the perimeter. And at the centre, flying the distinctive flag of a vice-admiral, is HMS Victory, Nelson's flagship. Even at a distance, she's an imposing sight, 227 feet long, 52 feet wide, carrying 104 guns and a crew of 850 men, the most powerful naval weapon of her age. Your ship takes its assigned position in the forming battle line. Over the next days, signals flash between vessels as Nelson's plan is communicated to all captains. Unlike traditional naval tactics, which relied on ships firing in rigid lines, Nelson intends something revolutionary, cutting through the enemy line in 2 places, isolating sections of their fleet, and overwhelming them with concentrated fire. It's audacious, even reckless by conventional thinking, but Nelson has built his career on breaking conventions, on surprising the enemy with the unexpected, and his captains, his band of brothers as he calls them, have absolute faith in his judgment. October 21st, 1805 dawns clear and bright, with a light breeze, perfect conditions for battle. The enemy fleet has been sighted, 33 French and Spanish ships sailing in a ragged line. Nelson's 27 British vessels form into 2 attack columns as planned. Before the engagement begins, Nelson orders his famous signal hoisted. England expects that every man will do his duty. The message ripples through the fleet, flags fluttering against the blue sky. On every ship, officers read the admiral's words to their crews. The simplicity and power of the message strikes you. Not England demands or the king commands, but England expects. It appeals to honour and personal responsibility rather than external authority. It's quintessential Nelson, respecting the individual dignity of every sailor while reminding them of their collective purpose. As the fleets close, an eerie silence falls. Men speak in whispers, if at all. Veterans make small rituals of preparation, checking weapons one last time, saying brief prayers, touching lucky charms. You find yourself doing the same, running through the gun drill in your mind, touching the small wooden carving you keep in your pocket. Then comes the moment every sailor dreads and anticipates, the first cannon shots. The range is extreme at first, most balls falling short or passing overhead, but with each minute the ships draw closer, the fire more accurate, more deadly. Your gun crew stands ready, waiting for the order to fire. The gun captain watches through the port, gauging distance with an experienced eye. When he judges the moment right, he gives the command, fire. The cannon leaps backward against its restraining ropes, belching flame and smoke. The noise is beyond description, not just loud, but physically painful, a concussion that pounds your entire body. The gun deck fills with choking smoke, visibility dropping to mere feet. And then you're in the rhythm of battle. Sponge the barrel to extinguish any remaining sparks. Reload with powder, then ball. Ram both home. Prime the touch hole. Run the gun out. Aim, fire, repeat. Time loses meaning. It could be minutes or hours passing as you work with mechanical precision. Sweat pours down your face, mixing with powder residue to form a black paste. Your arms burn with fatigue. Your ears ring from the constant thunder of guns. Through gaps in the smoke, you catch glimpses of the battle. Enemy ships with their distinctive striped hulls, masts falling, sails in flames. Occasionally, a British ship crosses your view, flags flying, gun decks erupting in coordinated broadsides. The enemy fire is intense. Cannonballs slam into your ship, sending deadly wooden splinters flying across the deck. Men fall wounded or dead, quickly dragged aside as others step into their positions. The gun deck becomes a hellscape of noise, smoke, and carnage. A French 32-pounder hits nearby, killing 2 men instantly and wounding others. Blood slicks the deck beneath your feet. The gun captain shouts for you to take the position of a fallen powder monkey running cartridges from the magazine. You dash below into the relative quiet of the ship's heart. The powder monkeys, young boys chosen for their speed and size, form a human chain from the magazine to the gun deck. The gunner hands you carefully wrapped cartridges of powder, warning with deadly seriousness about sparks or open flame. Back and forth you run, delivering the lifeblood of the battle to the hungry cannon. Each trip reveals a new horror on the gun deck. More wounded, more dead, more destruction, but also incredible courage. Men continuing to work despite injuries, officers calmly directing fire while exposed to danger. Word passes through the ship. Nelson has been hit. The admiral, conspicuous in his dress uniform with all his medals, has been shot by a French marksman high in the rigging of the enemy ship, Redoubtable. The news sends a chill through every British sailor. Nelson isn't just their commander, he's the living embodiment of British naval supremacy. But the battle plan continues to unfold. The British ships have broken the enemy line as Nelson intended, turning a single battle into several smaller actions where British gunnery and seamanship can prevail. Ship by ship, the French and Spanish vessels strike their colours in surrender or attempt to flee. Hours into the battle, the tide has clearly turned. The combined fleet is in disarray, with ships captured, sunk, or fleeing. Victory is assured, though the cost has been high. On every British vessel, the dead are laid out, the wounded cared for as best as possible in the primitive conditions. Then comes news that overshadows even the triumph of battle. Nelson is dying. The musket ball that struck him has lodged in his spine. The greatest naval commander of the age lies in victory's cockpit, slipping away even as his most decisive victory unfolds. As the battle subsides, the immediate danger gives way to a new threat: weather. A storm is approaching, and damaged ships are vulnerable. Your vessel has survived relatively intact, with torn sails and some hull damage but nothing fatal. Others aren't so fortunate. Several captured French and Spanish ships are so badly damaged they're unlikely to survive rough seas. British prize crews work desperately to make emergency repairs, knowing that each captured vessel represents not just strategic value, but substantial prize money for every man in the fleet. The wind rises, the sea grows choppy, wounded men suffer terribly as ships begin to pitch and roll. Surgeons work without rest, amputating shattered limbs, extracting splinters, bandaging what can be saved. There are no painkillers beyond rum and courage. As night falls, the full scale of the British victory becomes clear. Of 33 enemy ships, 22 have been captured or destroyed. No British vessels have been lost, though many are damaged and the casualty count is high. But the greatest loss is yet to come. Just before sunset, word spreads through the fleet. Nelson is dead. The admiral lived just long enough to know his victory was complete, reportedly saying, "Thank God I have done my duty," before breathing his last. The grief that sweeps through the British fleet is profound and personal. Men who never met Nelson weep openly for him. He wasn't a distant figure, but a sailor's admiral who understood their hardships because he'd lived them himself. In the days that follow, the fleet struggles to make its way to Gibraltar while protecting damaged prizes. The storm that threatened after the battle arrives in full fury, sinking several captured vessels and further damaging others. It's a bitter coda to the triumph of Trafalgar. Your ship survives both battle and storm, limping into Gibraltar with torn sails and a leaking hull. The wounded are taken ashore to the naval hospital, the dead buried at sea or in what will become known as the Trafalgar Cemetery on Gibraltar. The ship undergoes hasty repairs, just enough to make her seaworthy for the journey back to England. There's a sombre mood despite the victory. Nelson's body, preserved in a cask of brandy, accompanies the fleet home aboard Victory. The Navy has won its greatest battle but lost its greatest leader. For you and your shipmates, there's also the grim task of accounting for losses. Each mess tallies its dead and wounded. Personal possessions are collected to be returned to families if possible. Vacant hammock spaces stand as stark reminders of those who won't return. But naval life doesn't pause for grief. The ship must still be worked, watches stood, duties performed, and there's the practical matter of replacing losses. At the next port, press gangs will go out again, bringing in new men to fill the gaps left by battle. The return voyage to England is slow, the winter Atlantic unforgiving. Storms batter the fleet, testing repairs and exhausting crews already depleted by battle casualties. But there's a sense of purpose driving every man, bringing news of victory home, escorting Nelson on his final journey. When the coast of England finally appears on the horizon, the mood shifts. There's pride now mixing with the grief, a growing awareness that they've been part of something historic. Trafalgar isn't just another naval battle, it's the definitive moment that secured British command of the seas for generations to come. Portsmouth welcomes the returning fleet with a mixture of jubilation and mourning. News of the victory reached England weeks earlier via fast courier vessels, but the arrival of the battle-scarred ships makes it real. Crowds line the harbour, cheering each vessel as it drops anchor. Victory receives special attention, flags at half-mast for her fallen commander. Nelson's body is transferred to a coffin made from the mast of L'Orient, the French flagship he destroyed at the Battle of the Nile. It's a fitting tribute, connecting his last journey to his greatest previous triumph. For common sailors like yourself, there's little ceremony. Some are transferred to other vessels needing crew, others granted brief shore leave before their next assignment. The Navy doesn't stop for individuals. It continues its relentless purpose regardless of personal victories or tragedies. But there are compensations. Prize money from captured enemy vessels is substantial, distributed according to a strict formula that gives captains and admirals the lion's share but ensures even the lowest seaman receives something. For many, it's more money than they've ever possessed at once. And there's the intangible but powerful reward of having been part of history. In taverns across Portsmouth, Trafalgar veterans tell their stories to awestruck listeners. The battle quickly enters naval legend, with each ship's role and every officer's decisions scrutinised and celebrated. Nelson's funeral in London becomes a national spectacle, the largest state funeral ever held for a commoner. The procession stretches so long that its head reaches St. Paul's Cathedral before its tail leaves the Admiralty. Thousands line the streets to pay respects to the fallen hero. For those who served under him, who fought at Trafalgar, there's a bittersweet pride. They've achieved the ultimate naval victory, but at the cost of the leader who made it possible. Nelson's tactical genius created the conditions for success, and his inspiring leadership gave men the courage to execute his daring plan. In the years that follow, the legend of Nelson and Trafalgar only grows. The battle effectively ends French naval ambitions, securing British maritime supremacy for the next century. Napoleon, deprived of naval power, can never seriously threaten invasion of Britain. The Royal Navy itself is transformed by Nelson's legacy. His emphasis on initiative and aggression becomes doctrine. His concern for sailors' welfare gradually improves conditions. The Navy that emerges from the Napoleonic Wars is not just victorious, but institutionally stronger. For the individual sailor, however, life changes more slowly. The harsh discipline, crowded conditions, and constant danger remain realities of naval service. Press gangs continue to operate, though the practice gradually declines after 1815 as the Navy contracts in peacetime. Many who fought at Trafalgar remain in service for decades, becoming the old salts who train the next generation of sailors. They pass on not just practical skills, but the ethos Nelson embodied: courage, initiative, and dedication to duty regardless of personal cost. Some years later, you might find yourself on the deck of another warship, perhaps now a petty officer with authority and responsibility. Young sailors gather around as you describe what it was like that October day in 1805, when the greatest fleet action in history unfolded under a clear Spanish sky. You tell them about the smoke and thunder of the gun deck, the courage of men fighting amid carnage and chaos. You describe Nelson's famous signal and what it meant to those about to risk everything for king and country. But you also tell them about the naval life beyond battles, the daily routines, the camaraderie of the mess, the skills learned through hard experience, how a random collection of men, some volunteers and some pressed, became a cohesive crew capable of extraordinary achievements. This is the true legacy of Nelson's Navy, not just victory at Trafalgar, but the creation of a maritime tradition that would shape Britain and the world for generations. A tradition of professional excellence, of adaptability and resilience, of ordinary people performing extraordinary feats through collective effort. As twilight falls and your story ends, the young sailors disperse to their duties, perhaps seeing their own service in a new light. The ship sails on into gathering darkness, a wooden world floating between sea and sky, carrying the torch of naval tradition forward. You remain on deck for a moment, watching the stars emerge, the same stars that guided ships at Trafalgar, that sailors have used for navigation since ancient times. There's comfort in this continuity, this connection to all who've sailed before and all who will sail after. The sea itself remains unchanged, beautiful and terrible, generous and merciless. It gives life through the bounty of its depths and trade across its surface. It takes life in storms and battles and quiet accidents. The sailor's existence is defined by this duality, by constant awareness of both opportunity and danger. You feel the familiar motion of the ship beneath your feet, the gentle rolling that once made you ill but now feels like home. Your body knows this rhythm intimately, adjusts to it without conscious thought. Your muscles relax into that sailor's stance that balances effortlessly with the movement of the vessel. The watch changes, men moving to and from their stations with practiced efficiency. The eternal cycle of naval life continues. Watch and watch about, the ship never sleeping, always moving, always alert. Your shoulders drop slightly, releasing the tension of the day as you settle into the comfortable routine of evening aboard ship. The gentle creaking of timbers and rigging creates a soothing backdrop as you breathe deeply, taking in the salt air. The years pass like waves against a ship's hull, constant, rhythmic, gradually reshaping everything they touch. The world that emerged after Trafalgar was fundamentally different from what came before. Britain's command of the seas, secured by Nelson's victory, would last for over a century. The Royal Navy became not just a fighting force, but the guarantor of a global trading empire, the shield behind which British influence spread across the world. For the sailors who lived through those transformative years, life changed more slowly. The wooden walls of England's fleet remained largely the same, even as the empire they protected expanded dramatically. The daily routines, the harsh discipline, the cramped conditions, these continued much as they had during Nelson's time. But there were changes gradually implemented as the 19th century progressed. Flogging, though still practiced, became less frequent. Food quality improved somewhat. Advancements in medicine reduced the death toll from disease. Small comforts, each one precious in the Spartan world of naval service. Imagine yourself decades after Trafalgar, perhaps now a senior petty officer or warrant officer, looking back on a naval career that spanned the greatest age of sail. What would you see? What wisdom would you have gained from a lifetime at sea? You might find yourself on the deck of yet another ship, watching a new generation of sailors learn the skills you've mastered through years of hard experience. The youngsters move with the awkward urgency of those still uncomfortable with the sea's constant motion. Their hands are soft, their faces unweathered. They remind you of yourself long ago, before salt and sun and wind etched their permanent marks on your body and soul. One evening, a young midshipman, barely 14 years old as you once were, approaches during your watch. His uniform is too new, too clean. He stands straight-backed, attempting to project confidence he hasn't yet earned. "Sir," he says with careful formality, "is it true? You served at Trafalgar, under Lord Nelson himself." You smile slightly. Trafalgar has passed from recent history into legend during your lifetime. These young officers learn about it at naval academies now, studying the tactics from books rather than experiencing the smoke and thunder firsthand. "I did," you answer simply. "No need to embellish what needs no embellishment." The boy's eyes widen. To him, you're a living connection to a mythic past, a walking piece of naval history. He has more questions, of course, about the battle, about Nelson, about what it was really like in those wooden warships fighting for Britain's survival against Napoleon's ambitions. You find yourself telling him not about the grand strategy or the famous moments, but about the small human details that history books rarely capture. The way the gun deck smelled after hours of battle, cordite and blood and sweat and fear. The strange silence that fell between broadsides when men could hear their own heartbeats. The way Nelson's signal, "England expects that every man will do his duty," spread through the fleet, man to man, ship to ship, creating a shared purpose stronger than any enemy. You tell him about your messmates, ordinary men who performed extraordinary acts of courage not for glory or recognition, but because their friends needed them, because their ship needed them. Some survived to become veterans like yourself. Others were buried at sea, their bodies committed to the deep with simple words and heavy hearts. The midshipman listens intently, occasionally asking questions that reveal both his youth and his intelligence. You see in him the future of the service, better educated than your generation perhaps, but still untested by the realities of naval warfare. As twilight deepens into true night, you finish your stories. The boy thanks you with genuine gratitude, not just for the tales, but for the service they represent. He snaps a crisp salute before leaving you to your watch. Alone again on deck, you consider how much has changed since you first went to sea. The Navy itself has begun a gradual transformation. Steam power is emerging alongside traditional sail, creating hybrid vessels that are less dependent on wind and weather. Iron is slowly replacing wood in ship construction, promising vessels impervious to cannon fire, but introducing new challenges and dangers. Change is the only constant in naval affairs, as in life itself. Each generation builds on the knowledge and sacrifice of those who came before, creating something new while preserving what remains valuable from the past. You think about Nelson, dead now for decades, but still the measuring stick against which all naval leaders are judged. What made him exceptional wasn't just tactical brilliance or personal courage, though he possessed both in abundance. It was his understanding of the human dimension of warfare, his recognition that ships and guns are merely tools and that the true strength of a navy lies in the quality of its people. That lesson remains as true in the age of steam and iron as it was in the age of wood and sail. Technology changes, tactics evolve, but the fundamental truths of leadership endure. Care for your people, lead by example, expect much but give more. These principles, embodied by Nelson, became the foundation of the Royal Navy's ethos. The watch changes, interrupting your reflections. You relinquish your position to your relief, exchanging brief updates on course, weather conditions, and any sightings. The ritual is as old as seafaring itself, the continuity of vigilance that keeps vessels safe through darkness and danger. Below decks, the scene is both familiar and different from your early days at sea. Hammocks still hang in neat rows, but they're spaced more generously now. The air is still close, but ventilated better than before. The food remains plain, but has improved in quality and variety. Small changes accumulated over decades, making conditions more humane without sacrificing the discipline and efficiency that define naval service. You find your own cabin, a tiny space but private, one of the privileges of your rank after years of shared accommodations. The wooden walls are decorated with small mementos of your career, a model ship built during long watches, charts of distant harbours you visited, perhaps a small painting of a vessel you particularly loved. Sitting on your narrow bunk, you remove your boots with a sigh of relief. Age has made the physical demands of seafaring harder to bear, the aches deeper, the recovery slower. Your hands, once raw from rope and canvas, are now gnarled and thickened, permanently shaped by decades of the same work. You light a small lantern and open your sea chest, removing a carefully preserved piece of paper, your certificate from Trafalgar. Every man who fought in the battle received one, signed by the Admiralty, acknowledging their service in Britain's greatest naval victory. Yours is faded now, the ink browning with age, but still legible. The official language speaks of duty and honour, concepts that seemed abstract to your younger self but have gained meaning through lived experience. Beneath the certificate lies a small wooden splinter, barely the length of your finger. To anyone else, it would appear worthless, but you know its value. It's a piece of HMS Victory's deck, blown free by a French cannonball during the height of the battle. You picked it up almost unconsciously amid the chaos, pocketed it without thinking, and only later realized what you had, a tangible connection to history. These treasures aren't for display or boasting. They're private reminders of a day when you were part of something larger than yourself, when ordinary men like you shaped the course of nations through collective courage and sacrifice. You return the items to your chest and prepare for sleep. Age has made you more appreciative of comfort, however modest. The thin mattress that once seemed barely adequate now feels welcoming to your tired body. The woolen blanket, standard Navy issue but softened by years of use, provides reassuring warmth against the night chill. As you settle onto your bunk, you reflect on the strange journey that brought you here. Whether you volunteered for adventure or were pressed into unwilling service, the Navy became your life, your identity. The skills forced upon you became sources of pride. The hardships endured became the foundation of character. Could you have survived in Lord Nelson's Royal Navy? Not just existed, but truly lived within that harsh wooden world. The question seems academic now. You did survive, did thrive even, finding purpose and belonging in an institution that demanded everything but gave meaning in return. Would today's youth fare as well? Perhaps not initially. Each generation grows softer in some ways, harder in others, but human adaptability remains constant. Given time and necessity, people rise to meet the challenges of their era, just as you and your shipmates did in yours. Your eyes grow heavy as the ship's gentle motion rocks your bunk. The familiar sounds of a vessel at night surround you, the creaking of timbers, the soft footfalls of the watch above, the distant slosh of water against the hull. These aren't disturbances, but comforts, the acoustic signature of a world you've inhabited for a lifetime. Sleep approaches like an old friend. Your breathing slows, deepens. Your muscles, tense from the day's work, gradually release their burden. First your feet, then your legs, your back, your shoulders. Each part of your body surrenders to a pleasant heaviness. In that space between wakefulness and dreams, you see again the ships of your youth, great wooden castles with billowing canvas wings moving majestically across azure seas. You see faces long gone, messmates who became brothers, officers who shaped your development, enemies faced across smoke-filled gun decks. And perhaps, just for a moment, you glimpse Nelson himself, slight in stature but immense in presence, his remaining eye bright with intelligence and purpose. In this twilight vision, he acknowledges you with a small nod, one sailor to another, bound by the brotherhood of the sea across the decades. The image fades as sleep deepens. Your consciousness drifts like a ship before a favorable wind, moving from the solid shores of waking thought toward the boundless ocean of dreams. The transition is gentle, peaceful, the reward for a day well spent, a life well lived. This is the final lesson of Nelson's Navy, the wisdom earned through years of service in the harshest of environments. There is profound rest waiting at the end of honest labour. There is deep satisfaction in knowing your place in the world and filling it with integrity. There is lasting peace in duty faithfully performed. Your breathing settles into the rhythm of true sleep. The naval world continues around you. Watches change, courses are maintained, the countless tasks of shipboard life proceed without pause. But for now, you're granted respite, your body and mind renewed by the ancient cycle of work and rest. The legacy of Nelson and his sailors lives on, not just in history books or monuments, but in the traditions and values that shaped the Royal Navy, and through it, the modern world. Courage, duty, resilience, sacrifice, innovation, these qualities, exemplified during those wooden-walled days of sail, remain essential in every era. And so you sleep, a veteran of Britain's greatest naval age, carrying within your dreams the experiences that would seem almost mythical to later generations. The hardships that once seemed unbearable became the foundation of your strength. The skills forced upon you became sources of pride. The community formed through shared danger became a second family. Your breathing grows even deeper now, body completely relaxed, mind drifting further from conscious thought. The questions that began our journey: could you survive in Lord Nelson's Navy? Could you endure the discipline, the danger, the deprivation? Find their answer in your peaceful slumber. You didn't just survive, you lived, you contributed, you became part of something enduring. And as sleep claims you completely, that knowledge provides the deepest comfort of all, that individual lives, however small in the grand scheme of history, matter immensely in their time and place, that ordinary people performing their duties with extraordinary commitment can collectively change the course of nations and epochs. Your breathing is now the slow, steady rhythm of deep sleep. Your face relaxes, the lines of age and experience temporarily softened. Tomorrow will bring another day of naval routine, of challenges and responsibilities. But for now, rest comes as it always has, earned through service, sweetened by purpose. Sleep well, sailor of Nelson's navy. Sleep well, keeper of that proud tradition. Your watch is done for now. Others stand vigilant while you rest, just as you once stood watch while others slept. The great chain of naval service continues unbroken, connecting past to present to future in an endless voyage across the seas of history. Your eyelids are heavy now, so heavy as you drift deeper and deeper into peaceful sleep. The gentle rocking of the ship cradles you like a child, each subtle movement carrying you further into restful darkness. The sounds around you fade to distant whispers, then to silence. Your thoughts scatter like mist before a morning breeze, leaving only the pure, perfect emptiness of deep slumber. And so you sleep. A sailor at rest, a life well lived, a duty faithfully discharged. The ship sails on through the night, carrying you and your dreams toward dawn. Sleep now, just sleep.